From early 1775, British men-of-war searched Rhode Island shipping, especially the frigate Rose, annoying the colony's merchants who had become wealthy through smuggling. On the 13th of June, Deputy Governor Nicholas Cook wrote the frigate's Captain James Wallace demanding restoration for several ships, which HMS Rhodes has captured. 2 days later, the Rhode Island General Assembly ordered the Committee of Safety to fit out 2 ships to defend the colony's shipping and appointed a committee of 3 to obtain the vessels. That day, the committee chartered the sloop Caddy from John Brown of Providence and the sloop Washington at the same time. The General Assembly appointed Abraham Whipple as commander of Caddy, the larger ship, and made him commodore of the tiny fleet. Before sunset that day, Commodore Whipple captured a tender to HMS Rose. Caddy cruised in Narragansett Bay through the summer, protecting the coastal shipping. In an effort to obtain precious powder for the Continental Army, Cook ordered Whipple to cruise for a fortnight off Sandy Hook, New Jersey, to intercept a powder-laden packet expected from London, England. He was then to proceed to Bermuda to capture the powder stored in the British magazine there. Caddy departed on the 12th of September, but caught no sight of the packet. Upon reaching Bermuda, Whipple learned that the powder from the magazine was already en route to Philadelphia. Caddy was purchased by Rhode Island on the 31st of October, soon after she returned to Providence. Late in November, she sailed for Philadelphia carrying seamen enlisted by Commodore Esek Hopkins in New England for Continental service. She arrived on December 3rd and was immediately taken into Continental service and renamed USS Providence. Captain Whipple assumed command of USS Columbus, a larger ship, and Captain John Hazard was placed in command of Providence, later formalized by a commission from Congress dated the 9th of January 1776. The ships joined the squadron being formed by Congress under the command of Commander-in-Chief of the Fleet of the United Colonies, Esek Hopkins. Providence and her consorts departed Philadelphia, Pennsylvania early in January, but were delayed by ice and did not get to sea until the 17th of February. Hopkins deemed it unwise to cruise along the southern coast and led his little fleet to Abaco in the Bahamas, which they reached on the 1st of March and stayed for a raid on New Providence. The next day they seized 2 sloops, which Hopkins placed a landing party of 200 Marines and 50 sailors. The next day Nassau surrendered and gave the Americans the keys to the fort. Hopkins then brought his ships into the harbor and spent the fortnight loading captured munitions before heading home on the 17th of March. On the 10th of May, John Paul Jones assumed command of USS Providence with temporary rank of captain. The ship made a voyage to New York, returning about 100 soldiers to the Continental Army, whom General Washington had lent to Hopkins to help man the American fleet. She sailed again on the 13th of June, escorting USS Fly to Fisher's Island at the entrance to the Long Island Sound. USS Providence next escorted a convoy of colliers to Philadelphia, arriving the 1st of August. A week later, John Paul Jones received his permanent commission as captain. On the 21st, USS Providence departed the Delaware Capes to begin an independent cruise, and in a few days took the brigantine Britannia and sent the whaler into Philadelphia under a prize crew. Turning north, Jones headed for Nova Scotia, Canada, and escaped another frigate on the 20th of September before his raid on Canso 2 days later. Moving to Ile Madame, Providence took several more prizes, fishing there before riding out a severe storm. While Providence was at home, Hopkins appointed John Paul Jones the commander of Alfred, a larger ship and the commander-in-chief's flagship on the expedition to the Bahamas. Shortly thereafter, Captain Hoysted Hacker took command of USS Providence. The 2 ships got underway on the 11th of November. They took the brigantine Active after 10 days and the armed transport Mellish the next day, carrying winter uniforms and military supplies for the British Army. Providence had been troubled by leaks which developed during bad weather on the cruise, so she headed back to Rhode Island and arrived at Newport. The British seized Narragansett Bay in December 1776, and USS Providence retired up the Providence River with other American vessels. Providence ran the British blockade in February 1777 under Lieutenant Jonathan Pitcher. She put into New Bedford, then cruised to Cape Breton, where she captured a transport brig loaded with stores and carrying 2 officers and 25 men of the British Army, besides her crew. She made 2 cruises on the coast under command of Captain J.P. Rathbun, and sailed from Georgetown, North Carolina about mid-January 1778, again bound for New Providence in the Bahamas, but this time alone. On January 27th, she spiked the guns at Fort Nassau, taking military stores including 1,600 pounds of powder, and released 30 American prisoners. She also made prize of a 16-gun British ship and recaptured 5 other vessels which had been brought in by the British. During the early part of April 1779, USS Providence was ordered to make a short cruise into Massachusetts Bay and along the coast of Maine. She later sailed south of Cape Cod and captured the brig HMS Diligent off Sandy Hook on the 7th of May. She fired 2 broadsides and a volley of muskets during the engagement, and HMS Diligent was forced to surrender, with mast, rigging, and hull cut to pieces. When news of a British spearhead reached the American authorities at Boston, they hurriedly made plans to drive the British from the area. To spearhead the expedition, Massachusetts petitioned Congress for the use of 3 Continental Navy warships: the 12-gun sloop Providence, 14-gun brig Diligent, and 32-gun frigate Warren, while the rest of over 40 vessels were made up of both ships of the Massachusetts State Navy and private vessels under the command of Commodore Dudley Saltonstall. Providence was then assigned to Commodore Saltonstall's squadron, which departed Boston 19th of February 1779 and entered Penobscot Bay the 25th of July. USS Providence was destroyed by her crew along with many other American vessels in the Penobscot River on the 14th of August 1779 to prevent her falling into the hands of the British towards the end of the failed Penobscot expedition. The Providence Maritime Heritage Foundation maintains a replica of the USS Providence, which bears the name of the original. She was launched in 1976 and designated in 1992 as the flagship and tall ship ambassador of the state of Rhode Island.